Hi, and welcome to Thursdays with Penny. This is my show where I interview experts. So what constitutes an expert? Well, to start with, I feel I have to get to know them quite well. Often I get asked for recommendations, people who I think are good people that have skills. And over the last 22 years, since Thomas and I have been so connected into the expert world, the small businesses, the people who have really honed their skills, we get asked a lot, who can you recommend? Through our Mastermind program, it gives us incredible pleasure to deeply get to know people, understand what makes them tick, understand why they do what they do, see their passion, but also critically witness the skills that they have by watching the way they interact inside the Mastermind. On these Thursdays with Penny, I have a chance to interview one of them. And this week, I'm really excited to be interviewing Perry Simpson. Perry is an engineer at heart. He's dedicated his life to problem solving and working globally a lot of the time in the car manufacturing world. Look at how to troubleshoot and problem solve. Now, as you will learn, a lot of us have problems. We have small, we have huge problems. We have problems at home, we have problems in relationships, we have problems at work. But sometimes we only look at the symptoms and dash straight to what the solution should be. But really there is a better way. And Perry is the inventor of the one-page cure. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Perry. And I hope you enjoy our conversation. Right, Perry, we've gone live because we hit the 12:30 part. And this is a very relaxed conversation with an amazing man called Perry Simpson, who I've known for a year now, and I first met on the phone because we connected on LinkedIn, and then when he had a conversation about his life and his phenomenal concept of creating a one-page cure program, which I fell in love with because I just know how much everybody has a problem, whether it's a small problem or a big problem, whether it's at home, family, work, whatever. Problem solving is definitely a skill set. So I'm very excited to have Perry here, and we've created this conversation to talk about problems, but also we've got 3 questions we're going to go through to anybody listening to help them to maybe empathize and relate to some of the stuff that Perry can help people do. So Perry, can we start off? Will you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background and what led you to this?
Well, I've started my career as an electrician, and moved on from that to becoming manager, project manager, now sort of entrepreneur. So all my working career has been about solving problems for people in business, and it's for me, a problem is just simply an interruption to flow. Everything in life has flow, has a natural flow to it. You don't necessarily need to be a good problem solver to solve problems, but there are techniques that I've learnt over the years that I would like to share with people.
So tell us, so what I found fascinating is what you used to do in the car manufacturing industry when you were a major problem solver. Tell us a bit about that.
Yes, it's in the car industry. It's a pretty tough playing field, and it's where the problems in the car industry are compounded by the fact that it's a very cutthroat sort of business. It's very tight, margins are tight, and typically a lot of the projects I was managing, we was interfacing or we was interfering with the flow of a production line. And at Ford, typically 2 or 3 of the projects, they were building a car every 26 seconds. So you can imagine if you got something wrong, the costs, for losing the vehicles in production process escalate. You lose the line for a couple of minutes, so 4 vehicles gone. So we've over the years, I've worked on many projects mainly, and not just solving problems, but actually predicting problems using things like FMEAs, done a lot of work with Six Sigma for Ford, so that introduces you to a whole host of techniques. And most of these techniques can be applied to any sort of aspect of business.
Just going to make myself less sun on me because I feel, oh, blimey, it's even worse. Excuse me a minute, Perry, sorry. I feel like I've gone too bright. There, that's better. That's better. It was killing my eyes. Yeah, sorry, carry on, Perry.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that I can share. There's a lot of stories as well. There's quite a few, and I've met an awful lot of incredibly talented people along the way, and it's actually sort of this idea was triggered by actually by Brexit, because I was currently, at the time, I was working on a couple of big projects here in the UK, living in Ireland, and the exchange rate was going haywire, as you can probably remember, and suddenly those projects became unsustainable. So I had some free time on my hands, so I thought, well, you know, the option here is I could go down the early retirement route. So I always fancied retiring at 55, but a lot of things changed from a personal level and also from the work side of things. So I had a bit of time on my hands, and I started to sort of reflect, you know, what is it I could do? And I've always wanted to build something from the ground up. I've survived for the past 20 years on repeat business, word of mouth. I've not had to go out and sell myself as such, because I've proved myself to be a reliable problem solver, reliable source. And but this was something new. But I started to look at what it is I've done over the years, and I suddenly realised that when I walk into a room where people want to talk about a problem, I'm already seeing solutions and options, and that sort of triggered me to think, well, you know, how do I know, you know, where does this information come from? How am I processing it so quickly? And and over the years, particularly in GM, it's got me into a little bit of a few problems with managers, because you get invited to a meeting, and it's like a team of people would assemble and I'd walk in there and give them several options and a solution, which used to my bosses used to tend to get a little bit aggravated by this. So, you know, I started to think about this and try to work out map out what I do, what goes on in my head. And that's how this all sort of started. And it sort of grew and grew and grew.
Yeah. So I mean, what intrigued me was that when you talk about how you've got an innate capacity to see through a problem, and a lot of us, when we have the innate capacity, we don't realise that others don't. But the discovery of this and then turning it into something so manageable for people in terms of helping them problem solve really, really inspired me. What's the sort of questions that you get asked about what you do in terms of this? Tell us a bit more about how you came to the conclusions you came to.
It's when I look at look back at several problems that I've come across over the years, I've tackled, and I used to be able to do things like I'd get a because this is back in the days, you're going back a few years now, where there wasn't mobile phones, so you have to you drive sort of 20-30 miles to find a phone box and then find it's been vandalised. And you used to do all sorts of crazy things, like I'd knock on people's door because I'd need to make a phone call. But I remember one day I drove all the way up to Spennymoor. I spoke to the customer on the phone and I told them what to do. I said, look, this is all you need to do, is this. But they were insistent that I went up there, and I literally drove up there. It took me, I don't know, about 6-7 hours to get up there. Went in, walked in, 5 minutes, problem fixed. You know, it's a difficult thing, I think, for people to grasp. But what I've noticed over the years is people they tend to jump straight into trying to solve the problem instead of stepping back. And if I go back to my apprentice days, as an electrician, we only needed two tools when we got called down to a breakdown. That was a pair of pliers and a screwdriver. Well, there was a guy, a fitter, they used to call him the gentleman fitter. He used to take 10 minutes to get down to the line. The line has stopped and there's no beer being produced during those 10 minutes. But he used to go down with all his toolkits. He used to have everything. He used to prepare for the absolute disaster. And it's finding that sort of balance between. And people today, people tend to ask me how, obviously because I talk about this one-page cure. How does it work? That's the first big question. Well, how does that work? What do you mean by one page? Well, basically, one page is you start off. I have a mosaic. What I call a mosaic is of 12 keywords supported by 12 very important questions, and they're asked in a specific order. And they're designed so that you start at the very beginning. You sort of reflect first. You prepare yourself for the problem. You try and understand the problem, not just from your viewpoint, but from other viewpoints. Then you get into the nitty-gritty of actually trying to look at the problem, understand it, look at the options, and then obviously you formulate a strategy of how you're going to solve the problem and so on. And the process goes through. So there's 4 very simple steps. There's 12 key parts to it. And the other thing, the other question people always ask is how much it costs. Well, for me, it's how, if you look at the Ford scenario, you could debate for 2 minutes, how much is it going to cost you to come in and fix this problem? In the meantime, it's cost Ford more money, for the loss of production. So people are intrigued at the one-page thing. The idea is at the end of the process, the idea is to give you a one-page canvas. It could be a one-page dashboard. And it depends on the nature of the problem, but what you're looking at is if you like, a map. This is the problem. So it's like almost like a storyboard in a way that shows you where the problem, you've dimensioned it, and it's captured on one page. The page could be an A4 page, or it could be a wall chart. It just depends. For instance, everybody's talking about climate change at the moment, having a climate change plan and net zero for 2030. That for me would be for a big company would be a wall chart to tell everybody this is what we're going to try and do. This is our road map from now to 2030. So that's this model that I've put together will tackle any of those types of problems. It's really just a question of going through, answering the questions openly and honestly, because that's the key to this. A lot of what I find when you go in on a problem, you don't get the full information. I usually go to the guy on the shop floor and ask the guy on the line, because they do know what's going on. But you ask the bosses, you get half the information.
Yeah.
So that's really the biggest question, is that people like to know how things work and if they can do it, and anybody can apply this to any situation.
And I get the impression that people often go straight into solution mode before they've done enough discovery about what, they look at the symptom and they go to look for a solution, but they're not doing enough of that stepping back that you say, to say actually what is causing this problem, and stepping back. And those 12 questions are very powerful in getting you to step back and do that. And I think I see that a lot in the entrepreneur world. I see that in busy people as well, where you just want to solve it really quickly. So you make assumptions and you go straight to try and solve it without actually taking that step back. So I think it is a very, very powerful. So in your experience with all the clients and people that you engage with, and I know you're delivering some workshops and you're going to have your book, what do you think your audience struggle most with? What is the issue around their problems?
I think today the thing that we're sort of struggling with, everybody's struggling with, we're drowning in data today. I mean, I was just talked about 20 years ago, there wasn't mobile phones. So even I've fallen prey of being distracted with, the ability to have a smart device in your hand that you can do so many things with. I mean, the iPhone, the design of the iPhone is pure genius, because it's totally designed to disrupt your flow. And I think that's the problem. What I'm trying to put together here is something to help people get back into their flow. Because that's the thing. As I mentioned earlier, everything in life has a natural flow to it, and if it gets disrupted anyway. So things like bereavement, that causes disruption in people's flow. In a team, you introduce a new team member. There's obviously that upsets the natural flow of the team, and that's why change management is always in the top 10 in leadership problems. The top 10 lists is always there. Because it is always a problem when you want to introduce change, you are upsetting the flow of things. So I think the biggest problem is we're drowning in data now, and it's getting worse. And even I've gone back to using the trusty file effects, because it doesn't need connecting to the internet, it doesn't need batteries. I can sit in a quiet corner and I can just think. So I don't think. I think we're being bombarded with data now from all angles, and it's causing a lot of disruption. So I think we're overwhelmed with data. I think technology is overwhelming us, and there's a lot of uncertainty at the moment, and all that causes disruption. It's particularly, particularly people in business. The problems aren't any more difficult to solve. If anything, there's more options available, more possible solutions, and that in itself generates a problem, because you don't know which one to go for. And when you're looking at spending large sums of money, I mean, a good example is the artificial intelligence debate, which for me still sounds like it's a debate between people versus artificial intelligence. In actual fact, artificial intelligence needs people to actually to be able to develop itself and grow. And what I see already is there are the good, the bad, and the ugly AI scenarios already emerging. And my first AI project was over 20 years ago. I was asked by a company about what sort of information and maintenance, this was when I was at GM, what sort of information maintenance want from the system, the PLC controlled system, the robot system. So we sat down and went through, and I said, well, what my dream system would be, a system where it's looking at itself, and when a sensor in the system is starting to, the timings are slipping, or it's becoming intermittent, we get an early warning rather than we get a sudden breakdown and we've lost 4 vehicles. And they went away with that, and they came back with a PLC system that does now today exactly that, and Ford have got it installed. It actually teaches itself. You hit a magic button, it teaches itself all the timings of the various relationships between switching signals. And then when something drifts a little bit, you get a little warning to say, and it could be something as simple as just a little bit of dust on a photocell. So AI's been around a long time. Machine learning's been around a long time. Another project that was an interesting project where we use CCTV to teach maintenance where to look when there's a problem. So we had 2 CCTV cameras in a robot cell. And when the fault occurred, the camera would zoom in on the device that's actually stopped the machine. So the maintenance guy would just look at the screen. And then it was set so that we would learn the actions that the maintenance guy did, and managed to build that into the PM program. It's been around a while.
So what you were indicating there is the distractions that we have in life, and the overwhelming distractions and some of the applications for things that need the one-page cure. And so, Perry, when people want to get hold of you, how's the best way for them getting hold of you to learn more about this troubleshooting, problem-solving formula?
Well, it's the usual channels, really. The first thing to do is follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. I've just set up a new website, which is simpsonperry.com, and on there I'm setting up some special pages because that's like a me site, so you can find out a lot more about, because I do a lot of stuff, you know. I'm a yoga fanatic. I do a lot of other bits and bobs as well. I write books, fiction, short story books, and but on there I'll have some very specific pages, and would be good to just, as I say, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Facebook and on LinkedIn, because I will share things like some cheat sheets. I'm looking at a couple, one on AI, one on blockchain at the moment.
Right. So that's fantastic. Perry, thank you very much for sharing this passion to troubleshoot and problem solve people's, and the whole lifetime that you've dedicated to it. And it's lovely spending time with you. Thank you, Perry.